Good morning, traders. Today is Thursday, October 21st. My name is Charles, and this is the Pirate Traders live stream, and the market is open. Sorry, it took me an extra couple minutes to get started here today. But the good news is we're opening inside the previous day's range, which increases the odds that the market is just going to chop here early in the morning. So we don't need to feel like overwhelmed to be ready to jump into a position right away. We want to just kind of sit back, relax, and let the market give us a signal of what it's trying to do before we enter a trade. At least the way I trade. That's the way I look at it. So what does this overnight rotation that we got last night tell us? Well, it tells us first off that this trend is wearing out, right? That the momentum to the upside is coming to an end. For a couple days in a row, for like 4 days in a row, the overnight market was able to gap us higher. So this is the first signal that this market, the momentum in this market could be coming to an end. Okay. So what does that mean for us? Do we go short? If it's coming to an end, do we short it? Not necessarily, because it can still keep going for another day or two, particularly with the all-time highs so close right there. It wouldn't be unreasonable for the market to get up there and repair. That's actually a weak reference because it was made in an overnight session. So it wouldn't be that unusual for the market to continue today with some more momentum up there and repair it. So the levels that I'm watching this morning to figure out, is the momentum going to continue, or do we need to start pulling back and repairing some of this weakness we've been talking about the last few days that we have left behind? The key levels that I'm going to watch are basically the nodes of volume right here and here. Okay, so consider it like yesterday's low because the overnight put in lots of volume, built in lots of support there. If the market trades below yesterday's low, okay, first off, the gap fill is the first thing that comes into play, right? Backfilling that gap. Once they do that and they push back up to that low, do they find resistance there? If they do, that is a good short for continuation lower, particularly if they fill the gap first, right? If they don't quite fill the gap, if they come down to there, then it's not quite as a bullish or bearish a signal. But if they fill the gap, and then they can't get back up into yesterday's range, that is very bearish for further downside continuation. And I would just monitor for continuation lower, knowing that the market has a long way to go to repair all those references to the downside. Okay, so that is yesterday's low sitting at 45.1450. So once again, getting below that level and then that general area becoming resistance is bearish this morning. If the market trades above this last bit of volume that we had yesterday, you could even call it yesterday's closing price, so right around that 45.29, 45.30 level. If the market trades up above there, okay, gets above it, comes back down and finds support, again, that is a great long trade for continuation higher. First to repair that weak all-time high, and then if not, further continuation above. And anything in between these two levels, anything in here, will likely just lead to chop, to the market grinding up and down and up and down. So I want to give it some time to figure out which of those three scenarios is it doing. Are we just going to rotate in this range, or are we going to break out to the upside or break out to the downside? Okay, internal's pretty flat. Makes sense with the morning chop. Mangala, first one in every day these days. Good to see you, brother. Welcome. Mediterra, good morning to you. Mediterra says he doesn't think we see below 45.14 today. So that is the other alternative. Thank you actually for reminding me of that. It's like if the market pushes down to yesterday's low, pushes down into this node of volume from the overnight and finds support there, that would be bullish for continuation higher. But it could just be part of rotation as well. So it's something I've been talking about a lot lately. There's this concept of weakness that needs to be repaired in market structure. And that is, it's a very common thing that weakness that needs repair in market structure can force a market to move in the direction of that weakness. But momentum, which is what we've had for the last 5 days or so, is much more powerful than weak references. So if the momentum can continue today, we can push higher. But the overnight failing to continue to push higher the way it has the last few days and to give us a gap up is a sign that that momentum is coming to an end. And so if that momentum is no longer in the market, well, then all that weakness below starts to come into account. It's also worth mentioning, I was talking about this yesterday as well. Let me pull up the daily for the ES. It's worth mentioning that in both of these up moves, here and here, as the market got towards its high, I kept thinking we needed some massive pullback to repair the weakness we had left behind below. But in both cases, we just went sideways at a higher price, and then a failure to break out later is what brought back the repair. Same thing here. We pushed higher and then just rotated at higher prices, and then the failure to break out later is what brought the pullback that repaired all that. So that's a very real possibility here as well. We've seen it over and over again. The market may just rotate up here at higher prices, and then maybe 3 weeks from now, a failure to break out up here causes another pullback down to repair all this weakness, and then the market trades back up again. So something to keep in mind. History might not repeat, but sometimes it rhymes. David, good morning to you. Welcome. Two Manifs, good morning to you. Connor, good morning and welcome. Feel free to let me know if you have any questions. Amir, good morning to you. Nicholas, back with us. Good to see you. Malcolm, good morning. Got an IPO today? Yeah, don't mess with those. Jose, good morning to you. JG with the GM, good morning. J Trader, good to see you. Mike, welcome. Cotton Dog, the market has some lonely gaps down there. Need filling? Oh, yeah, there's a bunch of them. Some serious gappage happening. But like I said, as I just mentioned a lot of times, it doesn't go straight down and repair it. It comes back a few weeks later to do it. Design Knob, good morning to you. Sanju, good to see you. My pleasure. Harry P says, I see bearish. Ooh, Harry P sees bearish. Yeah, definitely don't see bearish yet. Like I said, to me, this market's not going to get me bearish because of that momentum and because of my history of learning not to get bearish when the market is super bullish. They'll need to repair that gap from yesterday and then find resistance for me to get bearish. But let's see what happens. Vincent, good morning to you. Naif in the house, good morning. Phoenix, good to see you. River Rock jumping on board with Harry P's bearishness. Ozzy, good morning. Sanju, a second good morning to you. Boy, I'm going to say this name all wrong, but Horishi? Welcome. Please correct me if I pronounce that terribly. Ronald, good morning to you. Man, lots of choppity chop chops. Doug, good morning. Ray, good to see you. Asif back with us. Can we have a look at the NQ? Let's do it. Okay, so the NQ overnight traded like a tiny bit more bearish than the ES, but not really. And they did create a good 45-degree angle on the low. So this is one of those random little things. I don't know why it works so well, but if from the very low of the overnight, if they create a 45-degree angle up, it tends to act as very, very strong support during the regular trading hours. So to get bearish on the overnight, I'd need to see us get below that level. As far as breaking out to the upside, you could either treat this level here, so about 15, 394 as a potential breakout, or if you really are cautious, you could wait for it up here at like 15, 430-ish. So that meaning they push above, they find support, you go long, or you wait for it to get above there and find support and you go long if you're super cautious. Okay, back to the ES. Philip, good morning to you. Welcome. Two Manifs is short the Dow on 100% margin. Hey, brother, you do you. Yep, tale of two markets. But again, they're not that dissimilar. I know it kind of feels that way because the volatility has changed a little bit in the two of them. ES is getting a lot more volatility than the NQ, whereas usually it's the opposite. But they're on the same path. You know what I mean? They're both showing signs of a strong uptrend that's aging, that's getting weaker, and starting to run out of steam. Connor, so if this channel is pirate traders, are you the captain? No, not at all, man. This is a captainless ship. We're all in it together. Rob, good morning to you. Brett, not as much chop in the NQ, slow grinding up higher. Yeah, that's one of the weird things about the NQ lately. It's had like less volatility. Normally the NQ is chop city and the ES is more smooth, but we've had a kind of a flip of those two over the last few weeks. Scooball, good morning to you. Ozzy, I got TPO in one side of the chart and chart on the other. I assume you mean like candlestick chart on the other. Do you think internals is a must to get a better reading of the market? It's a great question. No, I don't think it's a must. I certainly do not think it's a must. If I didn't have any internals at all, though, I would have something else on my candlestick chart, like the RSI or the MACD or something, just to get a little bit of a read. If I didn't have the internals at all, but no, you don't need the internals. And as a matter of fact, when you first start trading with them, they're kind of a nightmare. Like they can be extremely difficult to get like clear signals from until you've spent a lot of time watching them and really got a feeling for how they work. My first few months of looking at the internals, I just kept saying to myself, why am I doing this? Like they keep sending me wrong signals. So it is one of those things to really master reading the internals. You have to watch them for months and months and really get a feel for how they work because they send a lot of mixed signals. You know, just this morning, you got the ticks now trending higher and above the zero line, which is like bullish, but then you got the advancers versus decliners way below the zero line. So although it's kind of reversing and pushing back up here. So sometimes they give like really tricky signals and you got to it takes time to kind of master how they work. Okay, well, so far so good. If the momentum is to continue today, this is exactly how we'd want to see it do it. So let's see how it pushes through the resistance in this node of volume, which you can see acted as resistance in the overnight. Can we break through that? Mangala went short on a micro lot. Well, they're squeezing you a little bit. If I was short right now, I'd have my stop up here, probably around 31. Kim, good morning to you. Thank you. Black Cat, doesn't the 45-degree angle mean that buyers are buying again and again from the same week level and that they're going too long at week references? You would think so, but not exactly. Right? It's like a sign that the buyers are buying in at higher and higher levels. Right? Let's stretch this out and just kind of watch the way it traded. Yeah, so it's like the first time around they bought it here. Then they bought it here. Then they bought it here. Then they bought it here. So it's not like they were like pushing down, push like that. It's like the market kept trying to break lower and they kept finding support. So they just kind of created that 45-degree angle. That's the reason that we love the profile. Looking at it collapsed like that, where it's all overlapped. Because we're not looking at how it moved at a particular moment. We're just looking at throughout the whole night, what did it do? But it is a good point that you would think it would be creating weakness in there, but it doesn't. And the other weird thing about the 45-degree rule that I have found is true, it's something that Jim Dalton talks about, but I have noticed it only works if it's from the low. It doesn't work if it was like the ES today had like a little buying tail below there, you know? And so it's like, nope, this doesn't quite count the same as if it was from the absolute low of the day. I'm not sure why that is, but I have witnessed it to be true. Ashik, morning all. Definitely looking to blow through the all-time highs before having a pullback. Very possible. This market feels like momentum to me. It feels like they're still buying. That means they're looking at that all-time high. It's really close. It's just right there. Shubaho Deep, good to see you. Welcome back. Philip, till we run out of rum. Yeah, you cannot run out of rum. Not while you're out at sea. That is dangerous. David V, good morning to you. JTrader NQ stronger than ES? A little bit, but they're basically doing the same thing. Yeah, it's a little bit stronger. It's also building volume like you would on a trend day. Build volume, push higher, build volume, push higher, build volume. But they're going to have some resistance to work through here from yesterday. Connor, would I mind talking about the 6 charts I'm cutting to? Yeah, absolutely. So this is what I call the internals, the market internals. It is the breadth of the market, the advancers versus decliners, the ticks for both the NYSE and the NASDAQ. And basically all four are just measuring in different ways, measuring, the amount of volume that's going long versus short. They just kind of give us a clue underneath the surface of the actual stock market, the actual stocks that are being traded, are more people buying or selling them. And the things that I generally look for when I look at the terminals, I actually keep it really simple. Is it trending up or down? And is it above or below the zero line? It really is kind of that simple. If it's trending higher, that is bullish. If it's above the zero line, that's sort of a confirmation of the bullishness. And if it's trending down, kind of on all four, that's the way I look at it. And then over here on the right, this is the SPX and the NDX on the 15-minute candles. And the reason I chose to use the SPX and the NDX instead of the futures is because they only trade during the regular trading hours. And this moving average that you see, this white line, that's a simple 20 moving average for, on these like 15-minute candles. And for whatever reason, it works. It only really works perfectly if you only include the regular trading hours. If you include the overnight session, it doesn't quite line up right. So there's some kind of bot. There's some kind of algorithm that's designed to buy and sell, pushes into this specific moving average. And so it acts quite commonly as support and resistance intraday. Now, I will say, I don't like stick orders in here. So I wouldn't have, like this morning, just put like a short right at that 20 moving average, expecting it to act as resistance. But I would just like watch it and see what happens. It just gives me like insights as to what's going on in the market, particularly on a trend day. Shubaho Deep, smash the love button. The love button is just a little smash of the thumbs up to join the party. I'm so sorry, guys. It's early. Oof, I know. That one, it was painful coming out. I feel terrible. I just did that to all of your ears. We got 114 people here. We got 48 likes right now. So let me tell you what. Let's make a deal, you guys and me. If we can get those likes above 75 in the next 30 minutes, I'll stick around for another hour or two today. What do you guys think? Can we do it? Can we get above 75 likes? Sanju, I hear you, brother. Good call. Trading Donkeys in the house. Good to see you. Anyone bullish on Tpo? It looked like it was down in the pre-market. Oh, yeah. Little gap down today in the old Tpo. And the BTC is back down to 64.7. As to be expected. People got to take profits. Looks like it's finding support, though, around 63.7. So I'd watch the 4 hour to see if it continues to make higher lows. Man, the chop continues. Indecision City here on the ES. And we can see that 20 moving average is acting as resistance. It's pretty common. So if we push through it, that's like a slightly bullish thing to see. And then we would expect when it pulls back down, it would act as support. Two Manifs, do you trading DAX sometimes? Nah, I just trade the US equities. Doug says, I have found that the 21 moving average falls close to where the VWAP is located. Really? That's interesting. On what time frame? Man, we're up to 80 likes. Thank you, guys. All right, well, I'll stick around till like 11:30. You earned it. You had to move your mouse down, you had to click that button, and you made it happen. So I'm here for you. And smash that subscribe. Thank you, Donkey. Smash that subscribe button. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe. It will change your life. You'll become a new person. Your wife will become more loving. Your children will become more polite and well-behaved. You'll wake up with a Ferrari in the driveway. This is just how it works if you push the subscribe button. River Rock, maybe a P-shaped profile today, Charles? Well, certainly way too early to make that guess. Like I said, let's see what happens if they get above the closing price of yesterday. That's what interests me. Because if they get above there, they can start to bring in more buyers to get up to that all-time high. But as long as we're kind of stuck in this range, we're likely to just rotate and kind of bounce around. But the market has made lots of P's lately. How can you go long only BTC futures and not get liquidated? Do you mean with the volatility? If you're talking about the back end of Bido and like how it's built, I have no clue. That's beyond me, but I assume they've designed it to absorb the volatility. I have no idea. Honestly, I'm speaking out of school. Rocket saying he trades the Russell. Yeah, Russell looks strong this morning. Me Russell, me strong. Straight up trending higher. Doug, any time frame. That's interesting. Well, that's the thing about trading is like if you look at enough different tools and signals, they all point to the same levels. You know what I mean? You look at VWAP, you look at a moving average, you look at the POC on the market profile. What they all point to the same levels. Which is how we get those confluences. All right, well, things are looking bullish here. They're trending up with the ticks. They're about to push through that 20 moving average on the 15-minute candles. The advancers versus decliners aren't very impressive here. But there is potential that they could push through this node of resistance. Design knob 110 likes gets me to 1 p.m. No, I have I'm meeting a friend in the city for lunch, so can't do that. Ocean Blue, I can get behind that. If you don't want me to sing again, get us to 100 likes. Otherwise, the torture could continue. Okay, the market is one time framing higher here in the B period. Slightly bullish signal. We don't really get super excited about the one time framing till the C period, but it's worth noting. It's also worth mentioning it's very subtle, but there is a difference between regular chop, which is just the market going up and down and up and down, and the market slowly grinding its way higher, which is just like building support and working its way up. That is what's happening here. This isn't really traditional chop. This is more like, bringing in support. Every little pullback just brings in more buyers to get us up to the next level. So that is slightly bullish as well. Yeah, Donkey, I'm reading your comments here. I just don't think I understand them. Like, I get that the BIDO ETF has to just go long futures, but why does that mean it has to go to zero? Worker, good morning to you. Welcome. Ocean Blue, appreciate you. Cotton Dog, what was it a while back? A triple VIX fund that went belly up, something like that. Yeah, that would be the leverage. Armando, where did I finally move to in New York? Well, I haven't really settled. I just found like temporary place to stay for a few months in Astoria. So still trying to figure out where I want to live in the city, or even if I want to. It's starting to get cold, and I'm realizing I don't like the cold. So we'll feel it out. Meeting a friend in the city for lunch. Uh, Quotes, man. Quotes make everything creepy. Two man ifs, you have time to eat? Yeah, brother. Trading is like being a trader is like being a professional athlete. You have to be at your peak performance to have peak success. So you want to be well slept, well fed, well exercised. Ocean Blue, lunch at Wendy's. No. Rocket, 5 wins in the Russell. Congrats, brother. No, I haven't seen anything in the ES either. Huh? Yeah, Trading Donkey, you're in a depth here talking about these unidirectional, unleveraged futures funds, and you're beyond my understanding. I don't know how they do what they do. Isn't this one from BlackRock though? I mean, that's like the big name. You'd think someone over there would have thought of this. Armando, yeah, the Greek food is unbelievable in Astoria. It's so good. I'll write that one down. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. So if Bitcoin dropped to 40,000, they'd have to absorb that drop with the leverage of the futures. I get you. I see what you mean. Pro shares is who it's from. Surprised I'm not bullish yet? I kind of am. I really am. Um, I just want to see. I want to see us get above, like I said, the closing price of yesterday, and then find support. But the market is, it is, pushing higher, pulling back down, finding support, pushing higher. It's doing the right thing. It's grinding its way through this resistance. I just want to be absolutely certain before I change the banner at the bottom of the screen because I know there are people watching. And I would not want to change the banner to green right when the resistance smacks us back down. That would be embarrassing. Ronald ticks look weak. Good call. I wouldn't call them weak. Well, yeah, now as they start to trend lower, I would just say they're sort of neutral. But those of you that I just want to go back to this conversation about momentum for a second, which I think for intraday traders is such an important thing to grasp. Doesn't this morning feel completely different than the last like 4 or 5 mornings? On those mornings, weren't you like, oh fuck, I have to get long. This market is so strong. I'm gonna miss it. Right? Didn't you have those feelings like, oh fuck, I gotta get long right now, like, or I'm gonna miss the trade? Whereas this morning, you're feeling more like cautious. You're like, ooh, I don't know if I should get long here. This is feeling like resistance. Maybe they're going to pull back. Like, that's the feeling of the momentum waning, of there being less and less momentum. It's like the market is slowly realizing it's pushed itself too far. 90 likes. Thank you guys. There you go. Ocean Blue has made an announcement here. He's going to give away a Doge if we get to 100. But are you going to give a Doge to everybody? Who gets the Doge? Are you going to donate the Doge to the pirate? Which, of course, there is a link in the description to make crypto donations. Core, thoughts right now? Are you just joining, brother? Yeah, thoughts right now. The market is trying to get above that closing price of yesterday, but it's having a hard time with it. It's running out of steam. And so, like I said, in the first 5 minutes, that's why I always have this banner at the bottom. Go watch that first 5 minutes if you get here late, because I explain exactly what I'm seeing, which is that anything in between here and here is likely to just rotate. And it can rotate all day long. It can rotate for the next 3 days, right? Anything in here is just going to rotate. We got to get above this volume here and then come back down and find support to get me bullish for a continuation higher, or get below this volume here, repair that that gap, and then come back and find resistance there to get me short. Or the C period prints pulls below the B period low, and then I start trading rotational inside this range. Gone are the days where I feel a need to trade in the first hour before the market has made a decision about what it's doing. I can sit back, relax. I don't care at all. There's not a single part of me that feels FOMO in the first hour of the day. Unless there's a gap. If there's a gap, then I'll feel some FOMO. No worries, Core. I'm not giving you shit. It's all good. Cotton Dog. It could be argued we have a B high relative to the overnight high. If you don't include end periods of the overnight, without end period, overnight looks to have a poor high itself, which I know doesn't count. Yeah, I mean, I'm fully on board with you looking at it that way. I certainly don't see it that way. I don't see the B period high as being weak, even though it's like the same as this end period high. Even as it being the same as the POC from yesterday. Doesn't really seem like a poor high to me. But that's just how I sees it. Do you think the Dow could test 35,650? I don't look at the Dow. Sorry, man. I lost interest in that one a long time ago. I could pull it up, though, and just take a look real quick. Man, the Dow this morning is just straight up rotational. Uh, yeah, I mean, just looking at the candlesticks, nothing stands out to me about a need for the market to push up there and then fall back down. It also looks like on the 15 minutes is kind of making higher lows. Yeah, sorry, man. I'm not a Dow trader. No edge there. Wow, BTC. So they're selling, I get it. So they're selling the news the next day now, not the day of. All right. Well, I'm real close to getting bullish here. Target being that all-time high. Do not love the internals, though. Okay, so as the C period prints here, we created a poor high, and we left behind these single prints. So that poor high is likely to push the market back down to backfill those single prints. But then we could find support right there at the base, around 45.2675. Come on, market. One more tick higher. We've repaired the poor high, and we are one time framing higher for sure. That would be very bullish. Give me that one tick. There it is. All right. All right, so now the market is definitely trending higher. Continuing the one time framing into the C period is a sign that the market is still trending higher. It also was able to repair that poor high without needing to backfill those single prints, which is, a little more bullish. It doesn't mean it doesn't still need to pull back down there, but it just means to me now this support in here is good. This is good, strong support. The type of support that one might like to buy on a trend day. And I would basically lose that that bullishness probably if we got below half back right here, but I wouldn't put I'd put my stop down here, 2 ticks below the B period low, about 1 tick below the opening price, and just monitor for continuation higher. As long as the market can continue to one time frame, as long as the low of each letter stays above the low of the previous letter, I would just stay in that trade. All right. Thank you for the 100 likes, guys. Appreciate it. That's awesome. You want to take a look at the NQ? Let's do it. Okay, so the NQ just pushed above that node of volume that I mentioned. So now we're looking for it to pull back down and find support. Same exact thing as the ES. It's got single prints it needs to backfill. So just like this, we're going to look for support at the node of volume right there at the base of the single prints. But it is also one time framing higher, which is bullish. So if it pulls back down and finds support, that would be buyable to me. On the Q. Yeah, I'm sorry, Design Knob. It happens, brother. Can't win them all. Donkey short the market. I'm not sweating one dislike at all. So speaking of value, right, on this channel, we always talk about value. Jim Dalton has that saying, we trade value, not price. And the reason is because, price, which is basically just means where the market currently is sitting, that's just an advertising mechanism, right? Like a business putting a sticker up in the window saying, 60% off for Labor Day weekend or whatever. It's just an advertising mechanism to convince you to come in and spend some money that you would not have otherwise spent. The market just pushes the price around to convince you to come in and do business and go long or go short at a particular level. So we don't want to pay attention to that because that's a trick. But what we can pay attention to is the value of the market, which is this blue shaded in box here that we call the value area. And that basically makes up about 70% of the day's trade. So that's much harder to move around, because it's 70% of the day's trade. So it's a much more reliable signal. So a lot of times in a moment like this where I'm kind of like, I'm getting some signals that the market is bullish, but I'm also kind of getting some signals that it's not, that this might be a fake out. I don't really know what's going on here. That's when I just remind myself to take a look at the value. Where is the value currently developing for the market? Right now, the value is inside of yesterday's value area. So we would consider that neutral and a sign of potentially the market is just going to go sideways for the day. But if we can get another push higher, break yesterday's high, and start heading up towards that all-time high, we'll likely pull that blue box a little bit above yesterday's, and that will mean that it is overlapping to higher. And that is a signal that it is either going to go sideways or go up. So we're getting some bullish signals here, but not a ton of confidence in this. Do I consider the current C high weak as it couldn't get 2 ticks above yesterday's EGH ceiling? No, I didn't really look at it that specifically. The only time I really look at previous day for references in terms of weakness, and I know Jim Dalton looks at everything, and I'm different than him in this regard, is only if the previous day left behind a weak reference, right? If there was like a weak H period high here, then I would consider it. But in my opinion, that was repaired because like 2 seconds after the market closed, it traded up there and repaired it. So I at the end of the day yesterday, I was like, you know what? I'm going to count that as repaired. So no, normally if that had remained weak right there, I would consider the C period high to be a poor high. But because the overnight, like literally I'm talking about 2 seconds after the market closed, repaired it, I still consider that repaired. Arthur, good morning. River Rock, can you see who the dislike is? No, of course not. I never know who pushes the like or dislike. That's between you and your God. So we can hunt them down. Can you imagine how much different the world would be? I'm sorry, I'm getting off trading for a second here. Can you imagine how much different the world would be if there was real world consequences for like people that, you know, left shitty comments on YouTube and stuff like that? For the trolls of the world, it would be chaos. River Rock getting short here too. Lesbian. Well, when you say it like that, it sounds like a terrible idea. Okay. So we got above yesterday's high. That's a little bit bullish. So this node of volume here should act as support on the way down. If not, the base of those single prints. If we start trading down below the halfback here, that would be a little suspicious. I just realized as well, we're setting ourselves up for a potential look above and fail. So if you're not familiar with that concept, sometimes if you trade above the previous day and you can't get any higher and you pull back down, you have to trade down towards the opposite end of that day's range. Call that a look above and fail. So like I said, I'd be looking for support by halfback here. If they don't find support here on a pullback and they don't find it at the base of the spike, getting below, say, 45.25 would mean it's a potential look above and fail. targeting the low of yesterday. I still wouldn't take a trade because I'd be fighting one time framing, but I would just be aware of it. Design knob, when I catch myself feeling like that, when I'm feeling like, and you may just be joking and you don't want to hear a lecture from me right now, but when I'm feeling like that, when I'm feeling like I'm cursed and why does this keep happening, in reference to trading, obviously, it really helps to step back and walk myself through why I got into this trade, where I set my stop, you know, why did I put my stop there? What was my story for this happening? Why didn't I just accept that amount of loss, right? Because truthfully, in trading, you're going to be wrong. You're going to be wrong. So the only way to do this day in and day out as a career is to be okay with being wrong and to be okay with losing money. Like, it's part of the game. You have to lose money to make it. So as long as you're following your rules, as long as when you got in the trade, you had a good reason to get in, as long as you put your stop in a strategic location where you know if the market pushes past this level, I'm wrong, and as long as you accepted before you entered that trade that you could be wrong and that you might lose that amount of money, and you're okay with it. You're okay with losing that amount of money. As long as you follow those steps, you shouldn't really feel that frustrated when you lose. I generally only get really upset at myself when I lose if I break one of my rules. You know, if I did something I knew I shouldn't have done, that's when I get upset. Design knob. No, stop, brother. Jay, Charles, you seem to be a conservative trader. Yes, sir. Absolutely. I have no problem sitting around all day long waiting for that one beautiful trade to present itself. Sniper Energy. Shit, that should have been the name of this channel. Sniper Energy Traders. Okay. So this is one of those tricky moments, man, where we could potentially be looking at a look above and fail. Ticks are trending down. The advancers versus decliners could not get above the zero line. The breadth is below the zero line. This may have just been a chance for the market to give itself a little, selling tail up here so that it can turn around and head right back down towards yesterday's low, which has weakness below it, increasing the odds of a gap fill. So like I said, I wouldn't go short here because I don't want to fight the one time framing. But if I was going to go long in here, I'd have a very tight stop. I wouldn't use the one time framing anymore. I'd have a very, very tight stop. Also worth noting, as we pushed higher, instead of pulling the value area to overlapping to above, we actually pulled it both above and below. We expanded it. So this is still a signal. Value is still sending us a signal of rotation. Peter, my success rate is 54%, but my profit factor is more than 10 on SP 500. I assume you mean like over a year. Yeah, there's so many different ways to trade, but if you have a low win rate, but you have a huge risk reward difference, like every trade is 3-1 or whatever, then you can make a lot of money. Oh man, there's just no momentum in this. This feels like laggard buyers right here. All right, well, they're losing it here. It's time for the buyers to step in and buy up this dip. So let's look for those ticks to start trending higher. If they cannot, then we're probably looking at a rotational day or a pullback. Value says rotation. Okay, well now we can use this C period low for the cessation trade. So as long as this D period low can stay, it can go one tick below, but it's got to stay above 52.27.25, which would be the cessation of one time framing. And that would give us the signal that the market just wants to rotate. Why did I stop trading the Dow? Well, I never really traded the Dow. I just used to look at it. I used to watch all four of the indices. I had like an extra screen that just had all four of the indices next to each other. The S&P, the NASDAQ, the Dow, and the Russell. And I would watch on the 15-minute bars, and I would just kind of watch how they moved against each other. And when I was like a scalper, it used to like be a big part of my strategy. I could kind of really get a feeling for the market that way. But then when I kind of switched to market profile, I started slowly but surely taking away stuff that I was looking at to simplify it and simplify it and simplify it even more. Just as a way to limit the amount of distraction, basically. River Rock shouldn't get above 45.31.5 now. What do you mean shouldn't? Why shouldn't it? It's one time framing higher. We just now pulled the value area overlapping to higher. So technically, the market generated information, at least on the profile, is saying it should be able to keep going up. You're saying, yeah, if the sellers are waiting there? All right, well, there it is, the cessation of one time framing. So now the market is rotational. So what we're looking for on a rotational day, go away. I don't know why this line won't delete. Okay. So on a rotational day, we're looking for support underneath the POC, the point of control, which is buyable for rotation back up to it, or resistance above the POC, which is sellable for rotation back down to it. But with the added effect of a look above and fail, okay, and the realization that we have a gap below us, that, to my mind, increases the odds that the market might need to trade down to fill that gap before it's ready to rotate back up. So I won't be buying, the market in here unless I see very strong support. I'll need to see the ticks pushing their way back up above the zero line, and I'll need to have certainty that it's good, strong support. Otherwise, the highest probability is a trade down to try to fill that gap. And as I mentioned this morning, if it trades down and fills that gap, and then it comes back up and finds resistance, that would be very bearish. Mr. Knifeheart, did I look for sells at the top coming back into the value area? I did not. At that point, the market was one time framing higher, and I don't sell into one time framing higher. Just because whilst this time, the market pulled back very commonly, that continues much further and has for the last few days. So instead, I'm now waiting to buy support beneath here or sell the next push up into this resistance up in here as a rotational play. Okay. Also worth mentioning, the earlier I was talking about this 20 moving average on the 15-minute candles. It acts as support resistance. When you have a rotational day, it's very common for it to just keep kind of pushing through there. And so I just ignore that at that point. Let's jump over and look at the NQ. It's holding up. Okay, NQ is still one time framing higher. Still got lots of single prints that need backfilling here, though. Yeah, I mean, at this point, Donkey, it almost looks like at the exact same level. Look at where that D period printed. Look at that. One tick above the resistance from yesterday. I won't consider that weak. I'll let that go. But then, all right, yeah, let me expand that again. So what happened yesterday? Market went rotational. We got the signal here in the D period. And then what did it do? Down, up, down, up, down. Liquidation break, right back up, rotate, rotate, rotate. So today will be the day we find out how is the market going to try to balance off all this excess below, all this weakness. Is it going to try to just rotate at higher prices? Or are we going to break and start to head back down looking for support with price? We shall find out shortly. River Rock, we should test the B period low? Yes, absolutely. On a rotational day, the market very commonly needs to dip below value looking for support. So yeah, definitely should test that area. And if it fails, if this, 45.20 level fails, you could be looking at a potential gap fill. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Kim, Got your 1% for the day. Let's see how it looks tomorrow. Good for you. We'll see you then. So is that your way of saying you think we're going to continue to one time frame lower here? Donkey, you don't think it's rotational? You think it's at the beginning of a trend down to that gap? Cat Max Rod, good to see you. Yeah, I'm in the same place, Donkey. Like I obviously I've been talking about it for days. I think there's a ton of weakness in need of repair. I just don't think we need to pull back with price to do it. Worst case scenario, maybe the gap from 2 days ago. maybe 44.35, or sorry, 83. Jesus, dyslexic moment. Um, but yeah, if history repeats itself as it has the last few times, they can use time to balance it off instead of price, which would probably look like bouncing around in this range for days. Peter, what made me get into TPO charts? A guy named Peter. Yeah, for years I was following this dude in the Shadow Trader YouTube channel called Peter Resnicek, and he does these like weekly videos where he talks about the market, and he usually discusses like references on the profile. And I always wanted to learn it for like a long time. I wanted to learn how to read the profile, how to read the TPO charts. But the only like courses that I could find were with Jim Dalton, who's literally the guy that wrote the book on it. But he just charges a lot of money. Like his courses cost thousands of dollars. So for like years, I wanted to learn it and just didn't. And then when the lockdowns with COVID happened, I thought, let's do it, Charles. Let's make this trading thing a job. And spending a couple grand for education for a job is nothing. I spent 100 grand on college. So I went ahead and took those courses, and it completely changed the way I look at the markets, the way I trade, everything. Sanju, what did I study in college? I went to film school. I got a degree in film and television production. All right, well, the internals are looking pretty bearish here as we push our way back down below value once again. So we're looking for support in here. But if they break below that A period low, I mean, pretty much you can almost treat it like this level right here. If they break below here, come back and find resistance, they're almost certainly heading down to try to backfill that gap. But they could just as easily find support here and rotate back up, as that is what is the most common outcome on a rotational day, is you find support underneath value and then rotate back to the POC. Austin, welcome. We're happy to have you. Unfortunately, I'm leaving in a minute, but come back tomorrow and ask all the questions you'd like. All right, man. Look at them ticks. Sellers are piling on. Well, what are they thinking? What are they seeing that they're piling on towards? Peter, do I think it made me a better trader? Yeah, a million times better. Before, I wasn't really a trader. I was a gambler. I was just guessing, taking trades based on, like, I think this is what the market's going to do. Now I've actually created, like, within my own mind, a set of probabilities. I have an understanding of how the market moves and how it works. And so when I enter a trade, I'm not entering just because I think the market's going to do something. I'm entering because I know how it works and what that is likely to represent. You know what I mean? What that's likely to mean is going to happen. Okay, so lots of fun stuff happening right as I'm talking. We just pulled the value area overlapping to lower. Remember, we said we trade value, not price. So the value area is now saying that we're likely to either go sideways or have a pullback here today. We're also now finding resistance in this node, which was the last bit of support at the lower end of the range. So that is bearish as well. So if they can't get these ticks to start trending higher and push their way up above that zero line, I think we are increasing the odds that we're about to start trending down here. But unfortunately, I got to call it quits, guys. So thank you all so much for joining. I'll be back tomorrow morning here on the YouTube, and we'll take it from there. Have a great rest of your day, everyone. Austin, one more hour. I can't. I got a train to catch. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Any questions you have right now, write them down on a piece of paper and hit me with it first thing in the AM. Laters, Gators.